Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. I am here today with a repeat guest to our show because she is so awesome and helpful. And I am excited to welcome Darcie Gregoire. How you doing, Darcie?
Great. How are you? Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you are currently the founder and principal strategist of Order and Operations Consulting. By the way, I just love the name of that. Tell us a little bit about, your background and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So I started my HR career over a decade ago as a Department of Labor investigator. And I went into the private sector after about 5 years with the Department of Labor doing HR consulting and with different companies, staffing, manufacturing, construction. I progressively moved up into being HR director. And last year, I decided to start my own HR consultancy, and that way I can help more businesses get out there, help the small founders understand where the gaps are with their people
Yeah.
operations. And so I build and run complete people operation systems for growing, scaling multi-state companies.
Wow. You don't have your hands full at all, right?
Right. With everything going on nowadays, it's just been absolutely insane. So it's been fun and exciting, but kind of stressful for some of those small businesses for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I also work as an HR consultant, mainly do training and, mentoring now. But when I only choose a few small clients at a time because like, oh, they only have 5 employees. They only have 20 employees. It'll be easy. Yeah, right. They're usually the most chaos, right? Because they're running at the speed of light with their exciting new product or service. And then they kind of forget, oop, we have to take care of our employees, or more importantly, we need to follow the laws that we didn't even know existed.
100%.
I love that one of your sayings is you replace chaos with professional people operations engine. So, on behalf of small businesses, thank you so much. I have a question though. You talk about companies hitting a complexity gap around 25 or more employees. What are the earliest warning signs leaders get when they're about to cross that complexity gap?
Yeah, so when the teams start getting more decentralized, but the manual processes are still there. So
Yeah.
the founder, the leader, the owner, they historically, when the business first started, they were in everything. And
Hmm.
as the business scales, it's not possible anymore. So that's when those manual processes break. It's he said, she said type of a deal, and
Yep.
it's not getting back to the owner. So when those things start to break, all chaos breaks down. So when you think about trying to build the people operation system, it doesn't mean hiring a full HR team. It just means
Right.
wrangling cats. So you're building those processes to reflect your culture and vice versa. So if you build policies, related to compliance and multi-state, you have to have procedures in place. You can have this beautiful policy, but then not actually enforce it whatsoever. And so there's multi steps here. The policy related to employment law, and then also how do you want that to reflect your culture? And then how are you going to carry that out so that it's fair, consistent, transparent, and easy to administrate? That's the biggest thing. Spreadsheets get really complex, convoluted, you forget where you saved that spreadsheet and then you can't find it in the future. So, with systems out there nowadays, they're so inexpensive and they can save so much time and headaches. And that's kind of where I come in, to help flesh those things out and get everyone back on track to be using their brains, using what it means to be a human, relationships, building the business, and not doing those redundant tasks that can really create a ton of risk for the business.
Yeah, it's so true. There's a study from Deloitte that says poor organizational structure, in this case, HR structure, is cited as a top scaling barrier by 60% of growing small businesses. So, folks that are listening, if you know a friend who has a small business, send them over to an HR consultant that can help them because it is so important. Another statistic that I wanted to share was from McKinsey and Company that companies with structured HR practices are 2.5 times more likely to outperform their peers in revenue growth. So it's not just about following employment laws, and avoiding court cases, right? It's also about, hey, we want to outperform our peers so that we can still exist. And so we need to have some kind of structured HR practices.
100%. And I just had a call with a founder, a husband and wife founder, and they're over 150 employees. And so they've been doing things a little bit manually. Um, they don't have an HR background. And unfortunately, one of the owners was like, I just hate the day to day. And I could tell how stressed they were. And they need to be back at being the founder, being that strategist, enjoying why they built the business to begin with. Because when they start being the bottleneck and answering those redundant processes, it's not fun for them anymore. So they
Yeah.
need to get out of that and give that over to processes and other experts to do that for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially at that size, that's not really a startup anymore. If you're over 100 employees, heck, if even if you're out over 20 employees, but one employee or candidate can take you sideways and into court. So we definitely need to make sure that we're following the laws. So I have a question for you as a former Department of Labor investigator, which boy, I got to pick your mind some other time on all of that. What are the most common compliance risks companies don't even realize they're exposed to, especially as they expand across states?
Yes, that's a great question. And honestly, it doesn't matter if the business is 2 employees or 500 employees or even more. When I was with DOL, I investigated well over 100 businesses and for over 2,500 employees. And it didn't matter how small or large they were, there was very common issues, and it's really related to worker classification. So
Mm,
there's two buckets there, but honestly, both of them were applicable: exempt versus non-exempt, and then independent contractor versus employer relationship. So I'll talk to briefly about the independent contractor and the employee determination classification. There's the federal level, which everyone needs to follow, and then certain states have more stricter classification rules. Ultimately, if you're treating everyone as a 1099,
mm,
you need to probably reevaluate, especially if you have really more than 5 or 10 people working for you. Really reevaluate that, because there's probably some red flags there. So I would highly encourage you, just Google independent contractor and you're going to see a ton of legal blogs coming up there. That's
yep.
one. If you're paying everyone as a 1099, really reevaluate that, because there can be a ton of back wages related to that. If this person's really only working for you and they don't have their own business, um, and also if their role is something that you could potentially hire in-house, they're probably an employee.
Yeah,
So,
right,
yeah.
right. I see that so much too as an HR consultant. Or even when I was in like the mergers and acquisition space, and it's like, you're doing your due diligence behind the scenes, and you're like, whoa, we may not want to merge or acquire this company over here because they are 1000% violating many, many, many DOL laws and, even in the wage and hour division too. And so that it creates a lot of risk. I read a statistic from the US Department of Labor that said the wage and hour division recovered over $270 million in back wages for workers in recent years. And that's coming from employers who accidentally, we'll lean on that, accidentally classified them as an independent contractor. And for the folks that are listening, I know you're HR experts, so you understand the difference between the tax status, 1099 versus W-2. But whew, so many small businesses, they just don't get it. Well, they want it to be an independent contractor, so I let them be. It's like, no, it's not up to the worker. It's up to the law, right?
100%. And I get that so often. And I do want to just back up really quick and kind of do those stats. You know, hundreds of millions of dollars every year in back wages found just from the federal Department of Labor. That's completely excluding lawsuits, class actions, and state DOL. So it's huge and it really it can bankrupt a business. And I will say, unfortunately, when I was with DOL, I was with them for almost 5 years. I found over $2.2 million myself as an investigator in back wages
Whoa.
for over 2,500 employees. And unfortunately, I will say that there's absolutely been small businesses that have gone bankrupt because of that. They had a huge back wage bill, so to speak, because they weren't paying the workers overtime. Everyone was salary exempt. And I can touch on that second piece right there, because that's another huge violation. Just everyone's salary. It feels good to the employees. They don't have to keep track of time. It's easier for the employer, of course, just to pay everyone a straight salary. But if everyone in your business is paid a salary, you got a problem. So I
Right?
pretty much straight say that. So definitely look at exempt versus non-exempt classification. If everyone's paid a salary, I can tell you you've got a problem.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a huge back wage number because you're dealing with minimum wage and overtime then if folks are not classified correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, you heard it here. Make sure you are doing an internal audit before the DOL comes and does an audit for you. And it's very easy for an employee to file a complaint, and then the government has to follow up on it. Okay, let's switch gears here and talk about what you're doing now. You replace traditional HR with a people operations system. How should leaders rethink HR, not as a function, but as an infrastructure that enables the company to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm so excited for technology today because it can truly be a game changer for not just HR, but the business, of course, in general. So, where people come into play, they should be used for relationships, decision making, judgment calls, and really bringing the business forward and aligning the people operations goals to the business. That's what humans do. Humans should not be manually entering spreadsheets. They shouldn't be trying to put things into all sorts of different platforms because there's an Excel spreadsheet here and then a timekeeping system here and then
Hmm.
payroll here. So that's really consolidating as much as you can and then also making sure that your systems talk to each other. And with the technologies nowadays, it's so inexpensive to be able to do that and it saves so much time with administrative burden. So that's what I come in and stand up. I look at the policies and processes today and see where technology can be leveraged safely. Of course, you're not just going to go on Chat GPT and start building some sort of agent, outside putting in payroll. That's not what this is about. But with HRIS systems, most of them have amazing workflow technology. And the businesses that I get into are honestly probably only leveraging about 30% of the technology that they're paying for.
Whoa.
And that's really a game changer when they're even using 50%. It saves so much time and it keeps them compliant. And then they can focus on actually doing human tasks, not just redundant tasks.
Yeah, they could focus on the business that they're building and the revenue and the customers, the service or the product versus putting out fires, which humans cause, and also making sure that we are focusing on our revenue. I read a study from Gallup that said companies investing in structured HR systems see up to 20% higher productivity. I mean, that's huge. And I already talked about, the increase in revenue. I mean, that's what, even if you're a nonprofit, you're still in business to make money or to do something. I've used to be on quite a few boards in nonprofits, and people don't realize, like, no, we still got to make money to help the people that we're trying to help. And that's why if we have two employees or we have 2,000 employees, we really need to be structuring HR systems, and in this case, possibly outsourcing them. So, what are the common, like, I know you mentioned earlier in the last question that I asked you just about on the DOL side, but just in private business, what are the common mistakes that you see, we'll go with small businesses. What do they see? What do they do in HR that they should be doing wrong besides the wage and hour part?
Oh, that's a great question.
I could
Not
start I could start with one, which is they don't give formal or informal feedback.
yes, absolutely. And people are left wondering where they're going with their career
Oh, yes.
all the time. The job descriptions are totally outdated. Or it's just, oh, this is our job posting. That doesn't go through the motion of the full employment life cycle. So the job description or the job analysis. And then if your company has different levels, talking about maybe a little bit larger company that might have, I'll just use an engineer as an example. Engineer one, engineer two, senior engineer, going to a project manager type deal. If there's different levels of training, that should be really clear for the business. It's helpful for the business to for succession, but it's also helpful for retention of employees. They feel good. Hey, I'm learning this to move on to the next level, and I can then maybe be a trainer. And I see my career going this way. And it ties into performance, to learning goals. It's holistic. The employees here, they're not there just doing a task and hopefully not just collecting a paycheck,
Right.
but they're there to make a contribution, to bring value. And it's not just about what the job description does bring up, of what the requirements are, but employees have way more skills than that. So
Right.
if there's like a skills inventory, I've seen that be so important for especially small businesses that can't hire. If they have a special project and they have a skills inventory of this person has marketing experience, this person loves social media, you can get a team together, just from your current employees, and launch products and launch services and new initiatives based on your current roles. And it switches things up and makes people feel valued in ways that they didn't know before.
I
So
love that.
yeah, I found that, and it really allows businesses to pivot very quickly because the culture's already established with those folks.
Yeah, so you could kind of dive into your database to say okay, this client needs X. Let me see which would my current employees have that skill, and maybe I just put them on a special project for 2 months. They're still doing their full-time job, but we're taking them down to 80%, putting on 20% over here, and now they feel more valued. I absolutely love that. I want to follow up with saying two things. Make sure you're giving them feedback, preferably in writing. And it doesn't need to be a fancy form, right? It could just be like, hey, we're having the conversation. I'm going to recap our conversation and I'm going to send it to you in email. Guess what? Now it's written down. And now, for whatever reason, our brain, when we see things in writing, we're like, oh, that was serious. That was real, right?
Yes, and when you're just having verbal conversations, perception is everything.
It really
So,
is.
me as a manager, I'm thinking one thing. Maybe I did a poor job communicating it, or maybe I did a stellar job, but that person's just not receiving it. So, anytime you're having a feedback session, one-on-one, whatever it is, just do a recap email, exactly as Wendy said, and get that in writing. That way, it's on paper. This is
Hmm.
what we discussed. If you have any questions or need any clarity, let's talk about it. But you have
Absolutely.
something objective to go back to.
Yeah. And the other thing, I love that. I absolutely love that. the other thing that you mentioned was, making sure that you're, regardless if you have, 5 employees or you have 5,000 employees, making sure that there's different levels of like engineer one, engineer two, project manager, senior project manager. For the small businesses, that doesn't mean that you need to have somebody in every one of those roles. You can just say, in this career path, here are the options, even if you're the only person in there, right? So you could start at engineer one and then 5 years down the road be somewhere else. Hopefully the business is growing and you do have somebody following up behind you, but making sure you're having levels on your in your org chart or in your job descriptions, even if they're empty roles. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. Because if somebody comes in and there's immediately a ceiling there, they're going to be with you for 6 months.
Yeah.
So no one wants that. No one wants to go and just, job hop all the time. They want to go and bring value and see how a business is going to bring value to them. So it's mutually beneficial. So 100%.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll follow up on there, not everybody wants to be a manager, and I don't blame them. So make sure that there's other roles.
True, true.
So you mentioned technology. Let's talk about AI, which is one of my favorite things in the world right now. Also frustrating a little bit too, but super, super cool. AI powered self-service HR is a big part of your model, correct?
Yes. I love AI. I will say that it can be used in very beneficial and safe ways. I know that there's, a lot of talk out there of, being scared of AI and what that all means. AI is a game changer to help people do human work. And that's where I'm really focusing on that. So it can remove the friction, the administrative burden, the repetitive tasks that are frankly annoying to the vast majority of the workforce. And it can be used to leverage their brain in other ways. And so when it comes to what I can provide is helping stand up like those autonomous workflows or even a self-service AI bot within a safe environment such as Teams, Google Chat, whatever you're using for communication, Slack is locked down and it's like a knowledge base. So it could be your HR generalist, not to replace full-time workers, but to augment it, but to supplement it. And so 24 hours, people have access to the same information. They don't have to hunt down one manager. If you're in a larger organization, policies and procedures can be administered differently, as we all know. Oh, well, I had this manager and they did it this way, or that department does it that way. That's not fair. Everyone has access to the same information all the time, and they can get clarification from an escalated source. So that's really the focus to, and because it's been such a friction point also with email communication or calling a hotline or something like that. Depending on who you get, it could be a different answer or you have to wait. So self-service today can be instant for employees and it would give them a better experience as an employee and then HR a better experience as an HR practitioner.
Yeah, it's so important. Managers spend up to 40% of their time on administrative and repetitive tasks. And that's from Harvard Business Review. And so, why don't we help out those managers with technology, in this case, AI powered self-service, HR systems, so that they can actually use their human judgment to talk to the humans that work with them, whether they work remote or in person, and really making sure that hey, let's automate as much as possible. Let's use the tools at hand on our hand safely. We do have to be careful. So, folks, please be careful using AI. Again, I love it. I'm obsessed with AI right now, but you have to understand that it is a technology system that could possibly break into your system too. So use it safely and get the right people involved, right?
Yes, and most HRIS systems today have a fantastic AI functionality, chatbot, workflow system, but businesses just have to be set up to use it. And it's all locked down. If you're using it within your own HRIS system, it is safe because everything is right within there. And the tools coming out nowadays are just unbelievable.
They
So
really are.
products out there and they should be leveraged, but it takes people that know how to leverage that optimization and put it for what makes sense for the business and then training to use it. founders, owners, leaders aren't going to have time to sit down and work through everything and figure out how to use this correctly. So that's where, people like myself can come in, create it, train on it, and then it's good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about before about replacing traditional HR hires with people operation systems. And then on top of that, we add AI in there. And oh my goodness, how much automation we have and how much more time we suddenly have back in our calendars from the HR side, from the manager side, from the owner side, and then really from the employee side that they didn't have to go, truck over to HR or go on a Zoom meeting or whatever it is when they could just go, do, let me ask this system and it has my answer. So we can use this as a marketing tool when we're recruiting as well, right?
Absolutely. And especially the younger generations, they want to know that businesses are using the technologies today because I think the younger generations understand that they can unlock their creativity, their relational experiences and not sit there and just fill out spreadsheets and do data entry. And they
Mm,
want those experiences. They don't want to just sit there and do that. So I do know that the younger workforce wants to work for companies that are going in this direction. And it's just kind of it's tying it all together, letting the older generations know that this is not a replacement, but there is a place to come together and have it all be cohesive. And so, and the younger generations can definitely bring in those ideas. So I definitely encourage businesses that are scared of this to just get more information. If you're using an HRIS system, get on with your customer support or customer success manager and just ask them, and they'll walk you through it and hopefully make you feel more comfortable.
yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about AI is like if you're using one of the popular ones, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Google Gemini, you can't break the system, and you can it could though if you put it in your HRIS or any kind of other system, it could harm your technology if it's not done right. So please, 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 while we're here bragging about AI, make sure you get experts involved if you're adding an AI system to anything in your workplace, because we want to make sure that we're giving our employees the right information, because AI can give you wrong information. It's usually called hallucinations. And if you don't know what you're doing, then you need an expert involved. So let me know how I can help. I can't say I'm a 100% expert, but I am obsessed with AI and I teach HR people how to use it. And I usually see their mouths just hang open, go, oh my goodness, I didn't know I can do this. And I love using it with PowerPoint and Excel and everything. I just did a project myself using AI, finishing it today. I probably did about 44 hours worth of work in 4 hours using an AI system. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I was able to help the client do other things with that time that they already paid for. So very, very helpful. This has been a great conversation. I know we kind of went all over the board here, but before we wrap up, are there any like resources you'd recommend for our listeners and interested in diving deeper into, what we talked about today?
Yes, any kind of legal blog. So I would say keep up with the compliance for sure. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division honestly has some pretty amazing
They
resources,
do.
and they tell you how they enforce the rules. Their playbook is public. So if you think that the government's not telling you what you need to do, they are. You just have to go looking for it. And
Yeah.
of course, there's myself, there's Wendy. We're here, we're professionals. We do this for a living, and we're geeks. We love this stuff. So we're happy to to do things like this, and as far as optimization and things like that, um, I would definitely lean on a professional because there's YouTube videos and webinars and TikToks talking about AI. I wouldn't just trust the random person on the street to tell you what to do in your business. I would definitely get a professional that's in the space working it, um, so that they can help you do it safely and effectively ultimately.
Yeah, and in fact, the government is doing, and I think it's the Department of Labor. It's the Department of Labor just announced that they're doing Make America AI Ready initiative. So they're actually doing some free trainings on AI. I think it was just announced like this week, so or the time this comes out live in April. So definitely make sure that you check that out. It's free, or come to Aurora Training Advantage, and I myself am going to be doing AI training on different models probably once a month. So check it out there, and we could all help each other out and geek out a little bit and have some fun. But more importantly, making sure that we're reducing our HR administrative workload. In fact, McKinsey and Company says that AI and automation can reduce HR administration by 30 to 40% if you're using some kind of AI tool. And then, of course, if you're using all the tools that are actually in your HRIS system, as Darcie already said. So thank you so much for this. Darcie, how can our listeners follow you and connect?
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn. Darcie, Darcie. Last name is Gregoire, Gregoire. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me anytime. You can DM me. And my company is Order and Operations Consulting at orderandoperations.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming today. Take care, everyone, and thanks for joining us.